If you ever encounter a child who melts down when you ask them to get off their device, if you are worried that maybe your child is a bit more addicted to their screen than they should be, or curious about how do you just get them to do other things, this video is for you. I'm so glad you're here because today's session is about finding those parenting tips that handle screen time in a way that really brings out the best in you and your child. If we haven't met, hi there, I'm Kelly, and I have the great pleasure of helping moms with stubborn kids get them to inspire them to listen without yelling, using bribes, or caving in so everyone can finally enjoy a peaceful and a fun home. So just this past week, Heidi in my Stubborn Child Solutions Facebook group asked me how to handle her teenager around screen time. And I want to use hers as an example, but I also want to assure you that no matter what age you're dealing with right now, I'm going to cover some super practical stubborn child tips that any parent with a child of any age can use. And what she said here was, I'm sorry to disrupt your time on your holiday. Summer has been up and down and I need your advice. Ryan has been home for nearly a month. He does reluctantly help at our bed and breakfast 2 to 3 days a week, and he started tutoring once a week. Other than that, he helps with chores about 1 hour a day with unloading the dishwasher, vacuuming occasionally, etc. The rest of his time, he is gaming. So I just want to stop here. So Heidi, like a lot of moms, we will focus on what isn't going well instead of what is going right. And I just want to do a huge shout out to you. This is a big win. Like, how many of you moms out there right now who are listening are thinking, oh my goodness, if my child was helping 1 hour a day on chores, like without caving in and freaking out, that would be a huge success. The deal at the beginning of the summer was I wouldn't control his screen time if he woke at 10 a.m. and was reasonably pleasant. Well, that isn't happening. And when I mentioned that yesterday, he said he couldn't remember agreeing to it. So just virtual hands up here. How many of you have a child where they're doing something and you're like, remember we talked about XYZ? And they're like, we never talked about that. I don't remember that. So this is really common. When you come up with an understanding, you want to make sure it is received on both sides, because stubborn kids are experts at coming in the back doors and finding loopholes to any rules or discipline we set out. And the older they get, often the more they do this. There are times where I will actually send my teenager a text and say, hey, just clear, when we had that conversation today, this is what I understood. Is that what you understood as well? And I wait for a response back, which for those of you who know my material, I work with a system called the Peaceful Parenting Path, which is a 9-step, basically a family calming reboot system. Whenever there's an issue in my own life with parenting or for my clients, I always come here. And the very first step is called parent yourself. And when I say parent yourself, I'm looking at being mindful. I'm looking at what's going on below the surface, below the story of what we can see. So in this case, I know Heidi mentioned then he's gaming for all the rest of the time. I don't know what Heidi thinks about gaming. For some of us, gaming might be a bit of a triggering thing. Maybe we're worried they're going to turn out exactly like their grandfather and be lazy. Maybe we are worried that they're never going to have a friend. They're never going to help out. But we need to be aware of what our fears are, because if we're not aware of them, often we won't be able to have the energy and power behind us and the confidence to really get it changed. Let's jump into the tactical now. So this is Stubborn Child Screen Time 3M Solutions. I call it 3Ms because we are starting with M's. M for mindfulness. The second one is M for manage. And the third one is M for model. So we've been talking about the mindfulness part. And this is where I also want you to look at screen times in your home. What are your expectations? The Pediatric Association comes up with how many hours a day. Where's your child on that? Do you believe in that? Is it important to you? We live in a digital world. A child can be taking a device and you don't even know that they've been on it for like 3 hours because you've been so engrossed in your own work. So mindfulness. Next question I have for you here is, what do you value? I can't help wonder if maybe there's a couple of your values a little bit at odds. I know in a email we had after that first one I read today, Heidi mentioned, she doesn't want to lose the connection with her son. And this can be a really challenging part in parenting. And it can keep us being held hostage by our child's misbehaviors. And what do I mean by that? If you are so worried about your child being upset at you or being mad at you, but you're not willing to toe the line in terms of what the agreement is, as long as the agreement is fair, makes sense, and you have clearly outlined it and the message has been received by your child. If that has happened, then stubborn child, strong-willed kids, they actually respect parents who follow through. If you don't follow through, if you are not walking your talk, and we're going to talk about that in the modeling section, they're not going to respect you and they're not going to actually connect with you in a way that supports mutual respect between the two of you. Next question, what are your priorities? Not just like right now, you might be so focused on a deadline. I know sometimes I'm so focused on, a deadline, this has to happen. It's a really busy time in my life. And I'm not even aware of that we're sliding down into bad habits that aren't supporting my real vision of where I want to hold space for my family. And last but not least in this section, do your actions match these? Ha ha ha. And sometimes they don't. And that's when it's time to really look deeply into that and get clear on why your actions aren't matching these. Is it a fear that you're going to lose connection with your kiddo? If you're more fearful about that, then that's really the issue. The issue isn't screen time. Second one, manage. So these are some of the really quick things. And when I go through them right now, I don't want you to say, yeah, Kelly, I know that tip. I know that parenting tip. What I want you to ask yourself, do I use that parenting tip? How well am I using this parenting tip in my home? Could I use this even better? The first one is having tech-free times. Do you have times in your day, in your week, where there's no technology happening? So tech-free times in my home typically tend to be Sunday. And the kids have corrected me. It's low tech because occasionally if we are going for a hike with friends, we often do that on Sunday afternoon. Sometimes I will quickly check in like once that day, but my friends know I'm not going to be looking throughout the day if we are connecting. So tech-free times. After dinner for myself, I generally turn off all of my devices unless we're doing a movie together or something like that. The second place is phone-free locations. My big one, and I'm really recommending it for almost all families. It would be pretty difficult to convince me otherwise. The kitchen and dining room table is no place for your phone, period. And I find it funny because even the kids will tell like visitors that we have, including grandpa, get it away from the table. The third thing is understanding, managing the understanding. So we talked about that a little bit. Is there a clear understanding between you and your kiddo? As they get older, even a contract, especially if you're paying for their phone program, having a contract can be really, really helpful. And the reason being is you have something on paper to go back to when they say, I didn't sign up for that. The next one here is the clear consequence. So, and when it happens, what do you do? And what is the understanding between the two of you? And if you're not nipping it in the bud quickly, that's another problem. Strong-willed kids have a huge radar for inconsistencies, and they will prey on those inconsistencies. So if you let something go where they have watched and gone past their screen time allotment for the day, you haven't said something, they're just going to keep pushing the envelope. That is what these kids do. They are little lawyers in the making often. The next one is, how do you minimize the time And this really goes hand in hand with this second one, minimizing the time, but also maximizing enjoyment. So to give you an example here, it's summertime here. There are often some fabulous summer camps. There's one at surf camp, and at surf camp for the week, there are no devices allowed, and it's an overnight camp. So I am all over opportunities like that. And I mentioned our Sundays. The deal is there aren't devices on our Sunday hikes, and we often bring friends. And this is something to consider for play dates as well. What are your rules around play dates? Is there screen time allowed during your play dates? What does that look like? Finally, flexible rules. And I'm feeling a bit cautious to even share this one. And so this one is really an advanced one. So if you feel like, generally speaking, you have screen time in hand, that you're seeing that your child has a decent attitude, that they're still being very creative, that when they are getting off their device, you're not getting a lot of pushback on it, then this one is one to look at. So for instance, traveling. Maybe it is a really super long trip you're going on. It's a road trip you're going on. Maybe you bend the rules. However, when you bend those rules, you want to be super clear that that's what you're doing. And this is a special event. This is a special time to enjoy. But then when you get back home, you're going back to same old, same old. The last section, which is modeling, which possibly next to mindfulness could be the most important thing, especially with strong-willed kids, because if you are not walking your talk, if you don't have your own, what they call good device hygiene, if you are looking, not turning your device off before you go to sleep, checking in, if you're not very present when you are with your kiddo, they will not respect any of the rules you lay out. Are you being present with your kid when you're going to the playground? Are you keep looking at that next ping that's coming in? Or are you really eyes, ears with them? Sense of wonder. I usually use sense of enchantment. But what is it for you in your life? Like, do you have your own places of creativity and fun? And do you have dreams for your family that you're really working on? And the reason I bring this up is because I think we can get into mediocrity where life around our house is survival, or just at best, yeah, we're just kind of mailing it in. The more sense of wonder you have, the more sense of enjoyment as a family, the better off everyone is. I've had parents say to me, and my kid isn't reading. They're always on their device. They're not reading. And my first question is, are you reading? Are you reading, and are you reading with them? And are you getting books that light them up on a topic that really excites them? Are you getting enough exercise? I have a lot of parents say my kid has just been diagnosed with ADHD or ODD, which is oppositional defiance disorder. And the first thing I want to know is, are you draining their energy in a positive way, in a fun way for them? This last little bit here, this actually came from Susie Raish, who's a fabulous educator in this area, who I interviewed a year ago. She was talking about the importance of teaching our kids to turn off their own devices. So it's not a matter of you stepping in front of them and powering down for them, or physically taking their device away. It's about you saying, hey, you can have one show or two shows, and then turn it off and bring it to me and put it away. Especially for our younger kids, out of sight, out of mind can be a really, really useful habit to get into. But are they learning how to turn their own device off? This is something I use in my own life. Before I go to bed, I have a place where my phone goes, and it's a very far from my bedroom, so that I'm not tempted. And we need to be doing the same thing for our kids. So I am curious, how are these things landing for you? Do you feel that your child is addicted? Do you feel that you've got this handled? Is there a parenting tip that you have in terms of screen times that I didn't cover today that you know about? If you do, I want to hear about it. And if you have a question, I want to hear that too. If you haven't yet joined the Stubborn Child Solutions Facebook group, I would love to see you there. And I just want to remind you, thank you for all you do that is unseen, that maybe is going unappreciated in your home. And I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks so much. Bye.